And the value can be changed. But generally, a variable store only the single value. So it stores a single value at a time. If you want to store more than one value in the same variable, we can use the concept of arrays. So arrays are the linear data structures where we can store values of similar data type. So like this means we can able to store the integer data type or character data type or numerical data, mean any string data type, anything. For example, if we have declared an array, then the elements in an array. So here generally what you say that a variable can store only the single value. If you want to store more than one value, we have to use the arrays. For example, my array contains 10 elements. So if we want to know which element is stored at which location, we have to use the concept of index. So index in arrays are useful to know the position of element in the array. For example, array contains 10 elements. If you want to know the element specific element 10, where it locates, then you have to use the concept of arrays, index. Index in an array start with 0 and end with n minus 1. Start with 0 and end with n. Now see, in the arrays in Java, if you want to declare an array, there are three types in declaration of array. In the first type, we have to specify the data type and then the array name. So the data type is nothing but what type of data you want to store. Take an example, here int a. So we can say that here a is an array of type integer without a specific size, because we are not specifying anything in the brackets. The second case, the data type array. So this is another way of representing the array declaration. So here say int a. So we can say that a is an array of type integer. The third type is int, the data type, array name, and so. So most of the cases will use this type of method. If you want to use this type of method also, you can able to use. Otherwise, you can use this type of method also. In general, most of the cases will use this method. So if we specify that is empty brackets, so means we are not specifying any size for the specific array. So next one, how to instantiate the array. So instantiate nothing but how to make the array is useful. So here say, for example, int a. So what you understand here, a is an integer type array. So now here we are not specifying any size here. The instantiation nothing but to specify the size for the array. So I will say new int of 5. So what it means new, the operator new will allow you to allocate the memory, allocate the space for the variables. So here int 5. So what it says means it will allow you to store 5 integer values. So this is called instantiation. If you say, for example, like this, it is said we are instantiate the array. If you specify the size also, we are also say the declaration and instantiation. So means we are the specifying the size as well as the instantiate the array. So say here int marks equal to new int of I. What is sense? We are declaring an array marks with the size 50. So this is nothing but the declaration of array and the instantiation of array. So for this second case, int array A equal to this one. So what it means, in this case, the first case we are specifying the size. In the second case, we are not specifying the size. We are giving the values. So when you give the values, it automatically understand that what is the size of the array. So here we have specified the size of the array is 50. But in the second case, we are inserting the values. So we can understand there are 3 values. Finally, we can say the size of the array is 3. If you want to input the values while executing the program, then you have to specify like this one. So now the question, how to create an array of integer and how to store the values to the array and how to print the values. So first, I'm creating the array, Java array, which are the main method. So this will indicate that we are declaring an array without any size. So here ARR is an array of type integer. So in the second statement, I am initializing the array ARR with the size 5. So what it will do means it will allocate the memory to store 5 element integer values. Here we are declaring the array, but we are not specifying the memory allocation. So in the second case, we are allocating the memory to store 5 elements. Now, just say ARR of 0 equal to 10. What it says, it will store a value 10 in the location 0. As we said that the array indexes start from 0 to n minus 1. So ARR of 0 indicates the first element in the array. So here I am initializing the first element of the array with 10. Same as second element, third element, and so on. So this is how we can able to input the values into the array or initialize the values into the array. So if you want to display, as we said, I equal to 0, I less than ARR dot length. What is the ARR dot length? Here ARR is the array and length is the parameter. Length is a parameter for the array. So what it indicates, it will return the length of the array. So what is the length of the array? How many elements that are being stored into array? See here, for example, I declared the array with size 50 and I store only the 3 or 4 elements. Then what is the length of the array? Is either the 3 or 4, not the 50. The 50 is nothing but the maximum capacity of storing the elements into the array. Whereas the elements we have to length is nothing but how many elements are being stored in the array is nothing but the length. So here the element at index I equal to ARR of I. So what the ARR of I? ARR of 0 means the first element. I value increment. ARR of 1, 2, 3, 4. So here we are initialize the values directly. So if you want to take the input from the user also can be possible. So that is called the compile time initialization. So nothing but giving values before executing the program. You can able to give the values after executing the program, while executing the program also. So the output of this one is this one. Element at index number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We specify the size is 5. is automatically the index number start from 0 to 4. We can also write, as we see, that means the previous loop, that is the we are discussing earlier in the do while loop, and for loop. This is one more loop that is called the for each loop. What the for each loop? So here for data type variable array. So see an example for int I colon array. So what it means that this statement will do, it will accept each and every element of the array and it will be printed. So what is the purpose of for each here? Nothing but where for integer I colon array. This means that pick up the values one by one from the array and store into the variable I, and they will be printed. Automatically, what will happen? Ultimately, this is nothing but display the array elements. So here, if you want to display the array elements, first case we are using the for loop like this one. With the help of arr.length. So here we are not using the length parameter, and we can able to display the elements of the array with the help of for each. So here for int I colon arr means each and element of an array will be fetched and they will be stored to the I and it will be displayed. So here the statement that we execute in the for loop is only one statement. There is the SOP. SOP is system.out.println. So here Java programs to illustrate creating an array of objects. Array of objects. So array of objects means when you create the class, with the help of the class, you can able to create the objects. If you create the objects, you can able to create the multiple objects with the same name. That is nothing but the array of objects. For example, I have created the student class and I create the variable S1. So now I can say S1 is the object of the class student. If I want to use the same object S1 and I would like to store the number of student information, I can say S1 of 10. What you understand? S1 is the object of array. So that means it can able to store 10 students information. So S1 of 0 to S1 of 9. So see here, one class, the student here there, it contains two data and one method. So here the one method contains two parameters, roll number and name, which is used to initialize. See here, what are the parameter values we are passing for the roll number and the name? They will be stored to the roll number of this. What is this operator here? This operator is nothing but the current object. Represent the current object. So here, what happened? The current object roll number is assigned with the given roll number, and current object name is assigned with the given name. In the main program, in the main program, I am creating an array of student data type. See here, if I say here int array, what you understand? ARR is an array of type integer. Here, if you say student error, it means that ARR is an array of class. So we can say this is the array of objects. So here I am creating ARR equal to new student of 5. So it will nothing but it will allow you to store 5 objects. Allows to store 5 objects. So this is the declaration. This is the initiation. So if you want to do both the things at the same time, you have to use this one equal to new student of 5. This statement will happens instantiation and also the initialization at a time. So in this case, I am creating the array I'm creating the array of type student. In the second line, I am initializing the array with the size 5. Now see, I get a voice disturbance there. I'm getting some voice disturbance outside. Hello?
1 second, sir.
Here ARR of 0 is nothing but I am assigning the data 1 with this name details to the first object. So here ARR is the array. This is the objects. The first object of the ARR will be replaced with this data. Second object, third object, fourth object, and so on. So this is how we can able to create the array of objects. So what is the advantage of array object? We can able to store the multiple data type data at a time. What is the advantage of object? The object can store the different types of data. Here the 2 is the serial, 2 is the number, which is numerical data or integer data. Here the name is the string data or character. So the same way, if you want to display the information, we will use for loop for I equal to 0, I less than ARR dot length I plus 1. So here the element at I index number is ARR dot roll number, ARR of I. So here that what is the dot here? Dot represent the parameter value. You see, the here roll number of ARR of 0, name of ARR of 0. Next ARR of 1 roll number, ARR of 1 name. Like this, you can able to display. So what is the advantage of arrays of object is nothing but generally if you declare an array of integer or character, it can store the information about one data type only. When you create the data array of objects, it can allow you to store multiple data types. So here element yes.
మనం ఫ్యూచర్‌లో సైజ్ పెంచుకోవాలనుకుంటే అప్పుడు ఎలా సార్?
Then you have to use the size. That is the dynamic memory allocation concept. So okay, in the case of dynamic memory allocation, we can able to get the how can do it. Then you have to take the size as input. See here, you directly mention the size here. If you want to resize, we have to use the concept of dynamic memory allocation. We'll go ahead when you go to the next level, you can able to understand the concept. So this is about the fixed size you are specifying. In that case, what you have to do is we have to take the empty. See, like this, I have to take the empty this one, and after this one, I have to increase the this one. So how can you increase? First, I will allocate the memory for only one object. If I want to increase another object, I will ask to add one more object. Automatically, the memory size will be increases with the help of the same new operator only. What the purpose of new operator dynamic memory allocation is? It will allow you to add number of locations. The concept, I think most of the people, if you are aware of the concept of C programming, you can understand the concept of dynamic memory allocation, where we have the different methods like malloc, calloc, and realloc. So malloc is the method which is used to allocate the memory to store number of elements, and calloc is the method of allocating the memory also. Realloc means reallocation of memory. For example, as you said now, for example, I have given the size of 5 and I would like to add one more element. You can able to reallocate with the help of the method the reallocate. Reallocate nothing but extending the memory, or you can able to decrease the memory size also. So that is the concept of dynamic memory allocation. The dynamic memory allocation, you can understand the concept of how to increasing and decreasing the size of the array. So this one Java program to demonstrate passing of array to the method. generally when we will pass the variables to the methods, if you want to pass the arrays to the method also can be possible. In this one, I'm taking the main method. In the main method, I have declared an array ARR and I have given the values 31254. So when you declare like this one, what will happen? It will automatically set the size of the array as 5. And these elements 31254 are will be stored in the array. So here the 3 will be stored in the location 0 and 1 will be stored in the location 1, 2 will be stored in the location 2 and so on. So here sum of ARR means nothing but I am passing the array ARR as a parameter for the method sum. So here I am writing the method sum, public static void sum of integer. So see here, what is the difference between this method and this method? This is the main method where this is the user defined method. So this method is defined by our own. In this one, I am declaring the variables in sum equal to 0. So if I equal to 0, I less than ARR then I plus plus. Sum plus equal to ARR of I. If the sum plus equal to ARR of I equal to sum equal to sum plus ARR of I. Both are the same. There is no difference. So you can represent either like this one or this one. Sum equal to sum plus ARR of I. What will happen? It will look each and every element and it will add it to the sum. So it is initially sum value equal to 0. Now what are the values here? 3, 1, 2, 5, 4. So 3 will be added, then become 3, next 4, 6, 11, and 58. So ultimately the value in the sum will become as a 58. So what will happen? In the main method, see, in the main method, the class, in the main method, we have declared an array and we have called another method. So where is that method? This is the method. So whenever you call this method, automatically control will go to here and this method will be executes. What the method here? It will declare an array, variable sum equal to 0 and it will take one each and every element of the array and it will add it to the sum. So this is how we can able to find the sum of elements of an array. Next one, the topic is the constructor. We discussed earlier this topic. Constructor is nothing but the method which is similar to the normal method, but only the difference between the normal method and the constructor is constructor have the same name as the class name. See this one, here class student1, which contains two variables, integer type variable and string variable. Inside the class, I am declaring the method called student1, which is the name method name is similar to the class name. Now I can say this is the constructor. So now the question, does the constructor can be have the parameters or not? Yes, the constructor can have the parameters. The constructor may not have the parameters. That depend upon interest. The constructor doesn't contain the parameters. We can call it as a default constructor. The constructor have the parameters. We can say the parameterized constructor. So what the basic purpose of constructor? The basic purpose of the constructor in class is to initialize the objects. Whenever you want to initialize the object, we can use the concept of constructors.
That's
See here the class student main, which has the main method. In the main method, I am creating an object for the student1 class. Student1 class. So this is called instantiation and invoking. Now what I am doing here is I am displaying the values of name and number. So here the S1 is the object of the student1 class. So when you declare the object here the S1 and using the parameters, or using the data name and num, automatically the control will pass to the class and it will look for the class details. What is the class details here? Name equal to hello and num equal to level. So automatically these values will be replaced here. Automatically we will get the output as hello and 11 is the output for this program. See, in the first case, we said the message, see, we are use the constructor which doesn't have any parameters. So here what will happen in this constructor, we have only the single statement, that is constructor call. So whenever you create the object, without calling the constructor, it will automatically invoke. See here I have created the object just. So whenever you create the object, this line, automatically this constructor will be called and will get a message that constructor called. Then the values will be displayed. Okay.
Okay.
So this is called the default constructor. So how can you say the default constructor? It doesn't contain any
parameters.
If the constructor does not contain any parameters, we said the default constructor. So now look at the next one, the parameterized constructor. The parameterized constructor, the constructor will have the same name as the class name, but it contains the parameters. See here, I have two data types, string name and int ID, and created the constructor student1 with two parameter values, string ID. So what is the basic purpose of the constructor? As we said, those are used to initialize the objects. That's why I say this dot name equal to name, this dot ID equal to ID. What will happen? The name, whatever the value you are passing as a parameter, this will replace the current object value, and parameter ID will be current object ID. So here we are writing the main method, main class. In the main class, we have the method called main method. In this method, I have created the object for the student1 class. Now see, I am passing the parameters to the constructor. So whenever you say s1 dot student1 of parameters, automatically the Kavya will be replaced with the object name and I1 will be replaced with the ID. Now I am displaying s1 dot name and s1 dot ID. So this is the way you can able to assign the parameters. Now my question, sir, is it possible? See here, we are assigning the values directly. See, in the program itself, we are specifying the values for the constructor. Is it possible to give the values for the constructor to the runtime?
Yes.
Yes, we can able to give. Then that what you have to do?
We have to take values using scanner.
First you have to declare the variables. Then you have to use the scanner class. You have to take the data
and then
into the you have to take the
and
data
then pass that data values to through parameters.
Then you have to pass the parameter values. That's the way you have to use the runtime. So here the parameters for the constructor can be given. Not only the constructor, for any methods can be given either the compile time or the runtime. So if you give like this, this is called the compile time. This is called the compile time. When you give these values, the parameter values, while executing the program, that is called the runtime.
The constructor return type
Constructor doesn't have return type. The basic purpose of the constructor is only to initialize the object. So means whether if you want to assign some values to the variables or the member data of the object, you can able to use that only purpose.
Okay.
Then the constructors can be overloaded.
Yes.
So what is the overload?
It say Same name, different
Which one?
parameters.
Which one?
Constructor overload.
If more than one method have the same name with a different parameter, we can call it as a method overloading. If the more than one method have the same name and the name is similar to the class name, then we can call it as a
Constructor overload.
constructor overload. Here the constructor can be parameterized or non-parameterized. The same way method can be parameterized, non-parameterized. So see here the concept of constructor overloading. This one, I have created the class student with only the single parameter. Here the method have the same name as the class name, so I consider it a constructor. So when you create an object for the student class, automatically you have to pass one parameter. And according to the constructor parameter, we get the constructor with one argument and so name. Next one with the two arguments. So when you execute this programs here, next one the third one. This time long data type ID. So ultimately we have three constructors here. One is the constructor with the string parameter, another is the constructor with the string and integer parameter. And third one is the constructor with the long parameter. So when you call this construct, when you create the object, if you have the default constructor, it will arise. But here we don't have any default constructor, right or not? All the constructors are parameterized only. This is the parameterized. This is the parameterized. So ultimately, in the main method, you must have to declare the object and also need to pass the parameters also. See here. Here I am creating an object S2 and passing the parameter. So see here the parameter is only a single value, single string. So now I can say is a constructor one, the first constructor. How can you say? Because the first constructor have only one parameter, that is a string parameter. This is the second case. We are creating one more object with two parameters. One is a string parameter, and one is a integer parameter. Now I can say this is a second constructor. And third one, so a new student given the value like this one. So this is the value which is more than the capacity of the integer. It will becomes a long. So automatically the object is initially with the long value. So ultimately the output is the constructor with one parameter, string Shikar, construct with two parameters, string and integer, Dharmesh 26, construct with one argument, long. So this is the concept of constructor
overload. సార్ ఒకవేళ మనం ఆబ్జెక్ట్ క్రియేట్ చేసినప్పుడు పారామీటర్స్ పాస్ చేయకపోతే
మీకు ప్రోగ్రామ్ ఎర్రర్ చూపిస్తుంది. ఎందుకంటే ఒకవేళ మీరు పాస్ చేయకూడదు అనుకున్నప్పుడు చెయ్యకపోవచ్చు అనుకున్నప్పుడు నువ్వు ఏం చేయాలంటే యూ హ్యావ్ టు డిక్లేర్ వన్ మోర్ కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ హియర్. What is the constructor here? This constructor you have to declare. A constructor called otherwise object. So here wherever you don't pass the parameters, ultimately it will take this constructor. Generally, most of the cases you must have to use the default also. That depends upon the program you are using. You are using the parameters, you can put the parameter. Other if you don't use the parameter. But why we have to use the default means you have to know that whether the object is created or not.
Okay.
Right? So if you want to know whether the object will be created or not, then automatically you must require to use one default constructor also. So for example, if I say like this one here, student S1 equal to new student. What do you understand now?
Default.
Is a default. So this is the concept of same method. Overloading of same program, overloading of constructor with different number of parameters. In the first case, we are using the character, second case character and integer. The class name and the method names are same. That's why we can say the constructor. So when
సార్
you
ఇక్కడ
say
పబ్లిక్ వాయిడ్ అని పెట్టారు.
ma,
కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ కి పబ్లిక్ వాయిడ్ అని పెట్టారు.
you can give no problem, ma. So void means what is the void?
No return.
No return. So by default here, when you say the public, what is the advantage of this one?
We can access anywhere in the program.
You can access the same method, same constructor in any other class also. When it is inherited, when it is inherited. Generally, it doesn't require to specify the public void.
Okay.
If you want to use the same method in the outside the class also, you got to use the public method.